Hey everyone, this is Ben and thank you for joining us on this episode. Well, today we are in the Gumbie garage and I am going to start doing some mods or installing some items in the back of my 5x8 tiny camper Rugged Rhino, which I picked up last week from Groveland, Florida. Hoku and I made the trip out there, met up with Joe and the guys from Tiny Camper Companies, and we picked it up and made the long drive back home. But we are here in the garage, so we're going to install a couple of components in here to make our journey to the Ozarks for the Gumbie gathering a lot easier. Now, when I talk about power, I always use my BLUETTI power stations because they provide plenty of power for when I go dispersed camping or off-grid. But I believe in redundancy, and I like having a secondary system because I cannot always depend on the sun to recharge my systems. Now, so if the sun is kind of hiding that day, I like to rely on a lithium battery or lithium batteries while I'm dispersed camping. So today I'm going to install some systems in here, or some components that I could use while I'm dispersed camping. Now, I like lithium iron phosphate batteries. One, because of the weight. They're light. The discharge for these things are unbelievable. There's charging and discharge cycles. You can bring them down all the way to zero, charge them all the way up to 100%. They have unbelievable charging cycles. Some of them have all the way up to 10,000, anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 cycles, and they are environmentally safe. They don't have any lead acid in there. So you can mount them up, you can mount them down, and they're lightweight. This one only weighs like 20 pounds. So one of the ways to charge your lithium iron phosphate batteries is having a good solar power panel. Now, whether you have 100 watt or 200 watt is depending on, the battery capacity. I like using a 200 watt solar power panel because that's like the medium range. Most of my power stations can handle 200 watts coming in. But if you're looking for just a really easy one, 100 watt. But the medium range I like to go with is 200 watt. But if you do that, you cannot just plug a solar power panel directly into your battery because it does not regulate the power coming in from the sun, and you have the chance of damaging your battery. That's where a MPPT solar charger controller comes into play. This thing right here will regulate the power from the sun or the current to your battery. Now, this thing is very important to have. Now, you can also monitor your battery life, your battery power, what's coming in and what's going out of your system. Now, this right here is an MPPT controller made by Lead Time. Now, Lead Time had sent me this controller for testing review a couple months ago, and I have used it in my old camper, and I've used it in my ProMaster van. So this thing has been tested and it's been unbelievable. It's been working great, and this is going into the camper. So now you're wondering, how does all this come into play? So now let's refresh this. We're going from the solar power panels, okay, from the sun. It's coming in to your MPPT solar power controller. From there, it regulates the power from the sun to your battery, okay? So now you are taking power from the sun through your controller and charging up your 12-volt battery. From the 12-volt battery, it's then going into your inverter. Now, this is a pure sine wave inverter. It's taking your power from your battery, 12-volt, coming in, and converting it into AC power, okay? So 12-volt to AC power, and then you can plug in your AC plugs here, and then you can monitor it, how much power from your battery and how much volts to your AC power. And then you can plug in, you know, like your Zero Breeze. You can plug in anything that has you know, requires AC plugs. So again, solar power panels to your MPPT controller, to your 12-volt battery, to your inverter, converts it to AC power, and then you have power. Okay, so that's how it all works in a nutshell. Now there are cables that you have to hook up and all that stuff, and they're fairly easy because, you know, you're just using positive and negative, and I'll show you how to do that as we go to the build. But today we're just mounting stuff in here, and it's very simple. And then I'm also going to mount a fuse block. And the fuse block is very essential because it'll tell you if something's ground or if there's a problem with that accessory. And if there is, the fuse will actually either burn, or I'm gonna say burn, pop, or the fuse would be the problem before you have a problem with your accessories. So having a fuse block is very important. And then you can also hook up accessories, 12-volt accessories to like lights, LED lights inside of the camper as well, and stuff like that. So those are what we're going to mount today, and hopefully, you know, that'll give you some shed some light of, you know, if you decide to use any of these in your application. So let's go ahead and start mounting. So the first thing you want to do is you want to find out where you're going to mount your components. Now I just pushed in my Zero Breeze, like how I'm going to mount it into the system here. I hooked up the duct. I took off the battery because I wouldn't be able to mount it with the battery on here. And then I pushed it all the way in. That gave me a space free here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the inverter and the MPT controller on that side right here, because I don't want to mount it on either end because I don't want to push the screws through the sides of the camper. And I think having it on the bottom and then running my cables or my power lines and my wires on the top where you can't see it probably would be cleaner. So it's always great to plan it out first before you start drilling and mounting your system. All right, gang, I've got the inverter mounted. Like I said, you know, you always want to plan it out where you want to mount it. I always want to make sure there's nothing on the opposite side when I mount the screws. These are self-tapping screws, and with the material Joe used to build this, that resin self-adheres around those screws, so they're perfect for mounting. Now, I did mount it about 2 inches off the deck. Several reasons. One is because in case I spill any kind of fluid or any kind of water or anything like that, it won't get into the inverter. Also, when I run the cables, I can run it underneath of the inverter, and it gives it a little bit cleaner look. I am going to mount the battery on this side. I'm actually going to use a mini 12-volt 100 amp hour battery, and that is on its way. The minis are great because they're so small, but it still provides the same amount of power that a Group 24 battery is, so it'll fit right in there. And I do have my plugs on this side. I did leave some opening there because I can plug stuff in on the right. Now let's go ahead and mount the solar charge controller. And if the bottom of this right here, you will see you do have a PV. That's for your solar panels coming in. You do have your battery positive and negative. That's where your battery hookups are going to be, and then your load. But normally I don't hook anything up to your load. Or you can use these right here. It's the same thing. You can screw in your solar power panels, your battery, or your load, so your lights or anything like that. And that is going to mount right above the inverter. So, and then it'll go a little bit higher, so that way I can put the wires, run the wires underneath as well, and give it a little bit of a cleaner look. So let's go ahead and mount that in, and let's move forward. All right, gang, there it is. We've got the 2000 watt Pure Sine wave inverter and the 30 amp MPPT solar charge controller mounted in the back of the camper. Now we just got to wait for some cables and some other parts to come in, and we should have everything pretty much good to go. So in another week or so, we'll add on a little bit more components, and then we will move forward. But as far as the fuse block, so next thing I need to know is where I am going to mount this fuse block. I probably will mount it somewhere around here. That way it's out of the way and it's accessible in the rear. You know, this whole bottom half will be for my pretty much electronics and power, and I still can put my things right here. Like I said, I'm probably going to put the mini battery here or somewhere, but I can fit it in here, so not a problem. And I can still slide the Zero Breeze out. All right, gang, well, that's it for this week's video. The installation of the 2000 watt Pure Sine inverter by Lead Time and the 30 amp MPPT solar power controller. Also, the fuse box is already mounted. We're just waiting for a couple more components so we can hook everything up. We need the mini 12 volt battery, the 100 amp hour, and we need a couple of cables, and then we're going to mount the lights and everything else, and then the solar power connections to the camper. So hopefully we'll get it by next week. But if you made it this far in the video, we appreciate it. If this is your first time, go ahead and subscribe, like, and comment. Hit that bell notification, and then hit all notifications, and then you'll be notified of all the new videos we put out. Again, I want to thank you for sticking by, and if you got any questions, pop them in the descriptions below. I will post all the information on the Lead Time inverter and the MPPT controller in the box below. Until the next video, it's Semper Gumbie out.